Today we're doing the warm-up live on stream. Let me pull up my Restream chat. And this is going to be the Boulder warm-up. So named after one of my favorite cities in Colorado. And it's going to be completely metronome-based. So this is also known as the metronome warm-up. We're going to be doing some breathing, some buzzing, some lead pipe buzzing, a little sort of exercise to get our tonguing in place, and then a thing I call increasing tones, and then some just normal lip slurs and scales and things like that. But you should feel pretty warmed up at the end of it, and it's a good way to get your timing down if that's an issue for you, and it's always a good idea to check on. So well, you're welcome to do it along with me. Today will be a little bit shorter of a live stream so that I can sort of make a neat ending and beginning to the warm-up, but also it's New Year's Eve, and so we don't need to go on and on and on forever today. We just want to kind of get something done. I've already warmed up, I have to confess. Normally I do these warm-ups completely cold, but I have a lot to do today, so I want to make sure I got my good warm-up in. And yeah, well, without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start with some breathing, right? So let's turn this on, and we're going to go with 70 for now at the beginning. Let's make sure it's cranked up all the way. That's all it's got today, huh? All right. And we'll change that periodically as we go through, but like I said, I don't want to talk too much. I want to just get started. So here we go. We're going to breathe in for 4 and just out, right? We don't care how much out. We just want that immediate turnaround, right? So here we go. Good. Same thing, and if you've never done this with me before, then you need to know that we want to make our embouchure as we get close to the top of the breath so that we don't have to do it all at once. We don't want, right? We want, right, that was a little late. And that's part of the thing here too. Let me talk about it before we do it. If you find yourself not quite ready, then my advice is not to go ahead and go on the beat when the metronome tells you to. You can try that and you'll probably get a bad result, right? But instead, see how much longer it takes you to get ready to get a good result, right? And if you're not sure, then just go ahead and do it with the metronome, right? But if you don't get the result you wanted and then you figure, oh, that's probably because I wasn't quite ready to play, well, then the next one, just see how much longer it takes you, and then you can adjust your readiness so that you get all the way there next time, right? So that you start a little earlier, in other words. If you just go for it every time, then you're going to end up just being frustrated a lot, right? So we don't want that. I'm going to make sure I get my chat where I can see it. Okay, there we go. Same thing, in for 4. Ready? And now we'll try in for 2. Ready? Try to get your support involved as well. We want to breathe in against support, or at least engage it as we get close to the top of the breath. So I'm going to try to get it engaged first, right? Just a little bit. Just a little bit of abdominal muscles. Not too much, you'll give yourself a hernia. Here we go. In for 2. Ready? And now we get some velocity to the air, right? That's what we want. Same thing. And okay, so now we're probably ready to actually do some buzzing. Now I brought along my cutout today because, well, I often will do some cutout buzzing at the beginning of the day, and we're just going to try to convert this into a buzz from a poo attack if possible. So, oh, see, it didn't respond. Right with the metronome. And here we go. So now we have to apply that breath to the mouthpiece, and that's why we wanted to get smaller and smaller and more ready. All right? So I can even start from way out here, but I like to get my, well, I'll do one like that. Ready? We can get it ready, but it feels rushed, so I like to breathe through my corners. have this top and bottom anchor point set up. And always release your buzz into silence, right? A taper into silence if possible. It can be fast, but it's got to be off. And that's one of the best things you can do with the metronome is hold it for a certain amount of time and then off, right, with the metronome. Right? We start to get control of that. And if you're not sure how to do that, just taper until it quits on you and then try to notice something about how that buzz stops happening by accident and then see if you can engineer that on purpose, right? So and then all of a sudden it goes away and I go, oh, what happened when it went away? Well, the lips stopped vibrating, but can I feel why? Can I feel what exactly happened? And then can I do that on purpose? And what you don't want to do is just stop the air or just start breathing, right? Those are ways that people stop notes, and they're not wrong in every circumstance, but most of the time we want to just release and keep the air going, right? And so that requires control of the lip, right? Control of how the lip vibrates independent of the air. So you can hear there's sort of a roll to it that I want to practice, and that's what I'm doing with the metronome, okay? So here we go, just a little more of this. Ready? And I want the air to start the note, so I don't want to go right? I know I said start with a poo attack, but I'm making the air do the work. And so you might go hoo poo too here. We've done that in previous videos. I'm not going to do it here, but essentially that's hoo, poo, and then two. And the only reason we're not going to do it right now is because I want to approach tonguing a little bit differently. And so we can still do the hoo, right? And then I can do the poo. And then later we're going to add the two in a different way, okay? So that's a little bit on the cutout. My cutout is made by Park. But you can make your own. This was a screw rim, so I can put any rim on there I want, except I don't have the rim I currently play. So I got to call up Peter Pickett and get him to make me a new one. But at any rate, we can do that on the regular mouthpiece too. If you don't have a cutout, then hopefully you are following along. We'll just do a few. And I'm also trying to be careful not to tell it what pitch to be. I want to let it come out and then sort of decide, okay, that's where that's going to live. So now let me control it, right? But just kind of letting things come let come what may is a really good way to start the day, okay? That one was a little late on the release, right? I started releasing, but it didn't go as quickly as I hoped. Try something lower. So, same thing, right? And you can buzz however you want. That's just how I'm used to doing it. Let's get to the lead pipe. And this could be, if you are doing this alone, this could be the vented valve lead pipe. This could be, I'm going to do the full open lead pipe. And here we're after two more things. So now we've got some reflection to engage. That's great. We want to do that in time. So in other words, we want to know when it's going to kind of come. And then we want to place that with the edge of the note as it responds, right? So in other words, I want full reflection right from the beginning. and I don't really want the note to respond before I'm capable of that. And so there's sort of a ramp up to the air that you can't avoid, but we do want it, and we don't want it to get too jerky too, where we're going, right, like a jolty kind of blow, because that's very hard to control. Instead, we want to just exactly what we've been doing. And that's why we practice getting our support ready, right? So that when we blow into something that gives us something back, then we have some power there that's immediate, right? Excuse me. But it's not going to be 100% immediate. So there's still going to be a little edge there, and that's kind of what we want here. It's okay for us to go ha, ha, right? A little bit of an airy sound before the note responds is totally fine. We just need to know when that's going to happen. We need to be able to predict it so that we can spool that up and place it right in time, right? That's what this is all about. So, and that's why we need to use the metronome. So we can keep it on 70, I think. We'll give it 80. Why not? I like to, 60, 70, and 80 are really good metronome tempos for warm-ups. So here you go. So we didn't get an immediate response, and we also had trouble getting rid of the note. That's okay. We'll try again. Again, we don't want to tell it when to be just yet. We want to see how late it is, and then we want to adjust our timing. And I like to let the taper roll off after I've ended the note, because that has a sort of sound of like I'm in a really big reverby kind of room. And then if I need it to stop more dryly, I can do that. But if I can keep it going a little bit longer, that's actually kind of a nice thing. I've got someone in chat here who has, let's see, we've blocked them. Yes, good. Just a spam bot. All right, here we go. A little bit more of that. We're going to do the high note now. So this is sometimes harder for people. If you need to, just find it, right? Just get it somehow, and then we'll do it together. Here we go. See what I mean by the tail? There's sort of a taper after the fact. And as long as that's not, very rarely does that get in the way of something musically, because we often play in really wet rooms, right? But you could hear that one was a little bit late responding, so we want to adjust the timing on that, kind of go a little early. So that one, I went early, and it responded before I was ready, and so I got sort of a bobble. So this is what I'm talking about. You want to do this until you feel, and this is very low impact stuff, so you can do this forever and really work on how that response is going to come. And the metronome just helps you kind of zone out and just kind of pay attention to exactly the details that are necessary, right? Little adjustments. Now we're going to do top note, bottom note, top note. Just 2 beats at a time. Pretty simple, right? We can add more notes if we want. You get a little pitch shift there. Okay, so we can keep doing this. If this is an exercise that you really like, feel free to just continue, right? There's nothing stopping you from going all the way up to high G or just going slower. Maybe 2 beats isn't enough time for you to breathe. I know a lot of people really like to breathe in 1 beat, and it's important to be able to do that, right? I'll do it here. Right, it's important to be able to do that. But then when you have, let's say you have a pickup, okay, well now you have to breathe on the beat that the pickup is on, right? And a lot of people, they get really, your band director when you're in middle school and high school will often tell you to make sure you breathe on the beat. That's to stay together, right? It's a good thing. But if you rely on that completely, then, well, that means that you can't do a da 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 da, right? Da, da. Well, that's fine at that tempo, but what about da 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 da? That's not enough for a long passage, let's say, right? So you can't rely on being able to breathe just on the beat where you come in. You have to, or the beat before, right? Because then what do you do when it's that same thing? When it's da dum, right? Well then da da. You don't really, your body isn't used to that. And so what I do is I breathe for as long as I want to before, and then I stop breathing. And I know I just said that you need to turn around the air and never hold your breath, right? But it's more philosophical than literal. I mean, it is literal as well, but you can stop breathing in technically without holding your breath. It's kind of, you lock it in against your support. I'm getting way too down a road that I shouldn't have even started, right? But basically, so it's like a tongue stop, as if you were tonguing during that time. And that somehow still allows for a lot of support-based power to come through the air. And so anyway, the point is that you want to get used to breathing over longer periods of time, because that way you can stay more relaxed and you have power in that support, okay? So don't get too caught up in how fast you can breathe in. We'll practice that in a little while. I didn't plan it, but we'll add it in. Okay, so that's our lead pipe, and like I said, you might want to spend longer. Maybe it's 4 beats breathing in. That way you can stay really maximally relaxed, or maybe it's hard for you to put power behind that when you breathe that slowly in, and so then that's something else you want to practice, right? Just making sure that you have control of these parts, you know how they're going to react. Okay, so let's put our horn back together. And now we're going to do one of my favorite things, which, well, no, sorry, we're not ready. Well, this is also one of my favorite things. We're going to do, we want to put the tongue in there a little bit, right? And we don't have to do it now. We can do it anytime, but this seemed like a logical, nice place to do it because we've just done some lead pipe. We're going to play the whole horn. So I want to be able to go ta, ta, right? I want the beginning of the note to just have a really clean edge to it, but I don't want to give up this air-based response that we've spent all this time building, right? So we're going to do ha-ta, and we're basically going to use the metronome as a way to tell us first when the note responds, and then how much later our T is going to be. Okay, so I can do this without a metronome. Right, just after the note responds, I tongue sometime. And then I'm just going to sneak it closer and closer back to the beginning of the note. All right. Whoops. Until it's right on top of when the note was going to respond anyway. And you could hear the one I just got wrong, I tongued before the air was in place, and so I got like a bobbled sort of ta. Excuse me again. It didn't really settle right away, and that's because it wasn't from that same support. So we're going to do that. And this also qualifies as medium tones in this case, or alarm clock tones, which I guess we could do. Let's do some alarm clock tones to get ready for this, and then we'll add in the T. Okay, so just ha's for now. Ha, 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 just breath attacks. feel pretty confident that you know how the note's going to respond. And if you're not, do more alarm clock tones. Do them slower, do them faster. I'm doing them, I guess I'm doing them at 40 beats per minute because we're at 80 doing 2 beats, right? And you need some time to let go of the air and then do another breath. And so I'm practicing all of what we've done so far and just trust in that reflection giving me the note back, right? That's alarm clock tones. So now we're going to do ha-ta, ha-ta. So it's be ha-ta, right? And then ha-ta, hot dog if you want, right? So here we go. We're just closer and closer until we feel good about it. Much. So we've got a couple good ones in there. You could hear if I go too early, I get a funny response. If I go too late, I get another ha-ta, but I still get a solid note. So I'll often sort of walk it in and out of right on top of each other. And you'll always hear this little right before I play, and I stole that from my teacher. He did that a lot of the time that I was studying with him, and now you don't hear it with him anymore, but I do that as an insurance policy against my over-tonguing, right? If I know that I can hear the air a little bit, they'll never hear it in the audience, but if I hear myself just, right? If I hear that sound before, I know that the air is starting before I'm trying to tongue it out. Now, it might not get up to the, you know, if you're looking at a graph, right, it might not, sorry, this way, it might not get up to where it needs to be when I start tonguing to respond, and that's on me, right? But at least it's got a head start. So that's ha-ta as an exercise, and you can do it as long as you want. Again, this one gets a little bit intense, but it's not really going to wear you out in a dangerous way, right? You'll stop playing long before you ever could really hurt yourself that way. All right, now we are going to do one that's a little bit more intense than anything we've done so far, and this is called increasing tones. Increasing tones essentially is practicing this same thing, except I used to do it on a 3 strikes and you're in kind of basis, or 3 hits and you're in is really more accurate. Basically that I would do starting with 3 beats, I would do longer and longer notes with longer and longer rests in between them. And if I got 3 in a row, then I would just hold it as a long tone. And this is kind of a different way to do, rather than do alarm clock tones and then long tones, which is how I used to do them for this reason, right? To get the air first, just make sure I know when it's going to respond. And then, well, that often would build some like anxiety into my long tones, because I'd be like, okay, I've got now this is the long tone, and I go right, because I knew that these don't count but this one does, and so that just kind of built anxiety into my playing that I didn't necessarily want. I thought at the time that I was working it out by facing it, which for some people is the case, but I was instead building it into my playing. And so you want to be mindful of that kind of thing. In this case, I built this exercise of increasing tones to throw a wrench in that. So I'm still doing kind of long tones, medium tones, but also kind of alarm clock tones, but it's getting, the stakes are getting larger every time. I'm resting longer and I'm holding longer. And somehow that feels less anxiety-stricken while still giving me the same effect, right? So, and I found that it's really a difficult mental exercise, and I just go all the way through now. I go three on and 1 off, and then 4 on and 2 off. And you just add 1 to each side of the equation every time. So it's 5 playing and 3 resting, and 6 playing and 4 resting, and 7 playing and 5 resting. Sometimes it's hard to mentally keep track of, but then I also try to really manage my breath so that after the note I exhale I try to do it exactly half of the time I have. We'll see if that happens. And 80 is sometimes a little bit fast for this, but I think it's good. And we're going to start on B, and we'll just do a few of them. These, for me, like I said, are pretty intense. And these are taking the place of long tones because they are quite long. Each one takes a couple of minutes usually, right? I guess we could add all this up. Somebody on their calculator do, 8 factorial plus 10 factorial minus 2 factorial. Yeah, and that should be the number of seconds. Okay, here we go. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention too that I'm still doing breath attacks here, but because we've built the tongue in, I would accept a tongued version of this, and maybe we'll switch it up. Okay, here we go, sorry. 3 and 1, 4 and 2, 5 and 3, and so on. You could do this as long as you want. I did that. That was up to 11, just because I only wrote it out till 11. I guess I could write a few more. And 11 and 9, and let's get up to 12. And then we don't need 10, but we'll write it anyway. Okay, so you can see that takes a little while. And as for me, the easiest ones are right up front, right? They feel like 4/4 time. It's just breathe and blow. And then as I get longer and longer, I have to memorize how that worked longer. And you could hear in mine, I got some bobbled ones in the 7, 8, 9 area, right? All right, let's do another one. You can do these all over the place if you want, or you can do them as I would do long tones. I'm going to do them as long tones now, and then we'll skip around just because we're not going to do a full set. Here we go. We'll go a little slower too. Let's try 70. intense. And like I said, you can hear some of the times I'm getting overly ready, or I'm not ready enough. I'm sort of second guessing myself. When I'm breathing in, my whole breath in is part of my turnaround, right? So I'm making my embouchure, but when I've already played a bunch, I already know where it is, so I don't need all that time to go. And maybe I should take it, actually. That might be the solution. But a lot of times I'll find myself breathing through my nose and doing other weird stuff. And if it works, don't try to fix it. You know, it's fine. But it really puts you on the spot. Like, this shouldn't be hard, right? I'm just playing the same note over and over again. But it has some weird quirks to it. All right, let's do another one. Let's do G in the staff. We'll skip over a couple, because I'm sure you don't want to hear me do this for 10 minutes. But it does take a long time to do all of them. In fact, let's look at the clock. Okay, so it's 30, 31, okay, 30 seconds. Here we go. Let's see where we get to. 31, 30, I'll go to 40. Oops. Sorry. I tried. Oops. I've changed the. Okay. Now I've really done it. I was just trying to look to see. That was like a minute and a half. It probably would have been 2 minutes if I finished it. So that's just one note for 2 minutes. This is a long exercise, right? Now I got to fix this sound. There we go. I think this needs new batteries. It's not very loud. Okay. So that's increasing tones. I recommend doing them. Again, there's long tones will never hurt you. They might hurt your practice effort for the rest of the day if you need to practice other things and you're too tired. But they'll always help you build endurance and tone quality and support and stability. And I mean, just everything you need is in long tones, except flexibility, which is what we're going to do next. So we're just going to do some violin. You guys have done violin with me 1,000 times. So we'll go back up to 80. And again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. We're already past a half an hour. And I like to try to keep these warm-up videos with explanation within an hour. I was hoping to get this one done in about a half an hour, so we're already over time. There we go. This is violin number 1 if you're following along at home. Release, or if you're going to do some noodles at the end, go ahead and do them. Right? Whatever you want. could do a full set. You guys by now know violin. You just keep going, E, E flat, D, C sharp, all the way down to low F sharp, right? So I find, like I said, I'm truncating this not because I don't want you to do the whole thing, but because I think you understand, and the purpose of the videos often is to remind you of what you need to do, and then you put it on pause and, you know, go do it. Sometimes it's nice to play along for a few, and if you really need to, then just rewind and do it again. Playing along and really hearing somebody else's sound is one of the best ways to improve. Even if you're not sure how they do stuff, you just play along with them or try to sound like them, and you start to figure out stuff. I told one of my students the other day, like it's about the sound in between the notes, actually, right? In other words, the way that they get from one note to another. You start to hear that, and you start to emulate that, and then you start to actually figure out how to do it. Okay, so that's violin. Now we're going to do, I find that this pairs really well. I always do Vinslers next, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do it every day. I've done it already today. But there's a part of Trumpet Today by Bud Brisbois, which is a different warm-up on this channel, that I think pairs really well with violin. So I'm going to do that instead. And we're going to go faster because the last thing we're going to do needs to be kind of fast. We'll go 120. I think that's a good. So this is just the one that, well, you'll see how it goes. Oh, sorry. And then twice as fast. Or something like that. I'm just going to do the fast ones from now on. There's two next to each other in the book. See, this is why we do it. I wasn't ready. Let me explain that. I wasn't really ready to come in with the amount and speed of air I needed to play the whole exercise, and so I hesitated right as I was coming in, and nothing came out. So you want to redo that. If you build the exercise on that habit, not only are you going to work too hard and not really build good flexibility habits, but you're also saying to yourself, that's okay. Now, if you're doing a run through of a piece, you don't want to stop every time you make a mistake. That's a different kind of practice. But in your routine, you want to practice until they say, don't just practice until you get it right, practice until you can't get it wrong. And that's really what this is all about. So if you make a mistake like that in your production, then you want to stop and address it. And you might even have to go back to some of the earlier exercises. Hopefully I don't have to do that right now, but we'll see. It's all about the timing of that turnaround, right? I wasn't ready when the metronome went off. Now this isn't how this book was meant to be made, but I like the exercise. Meant to be used, rather. For bonus points, we can put a breath in there at the end, so we'll try that now. And see, you get just a little bit of a cuff. I haven't memorized that octave yet. Dirty again. I'll tell you what it is now. I'm getting the initial attack fine, but I'm not really sure if I'm not laying into the first note, so I'm moving too fast, and then I just don't have control. So let's not do that. I didn't breathe, did I? Better. One more. It is what it is. Okay. So there's our little fast slurs exercise. We didn't really do anything too crazy, but just moving fast from the beginning is sometimes really difficult to do, and now we've addressed it a little bit today. You can tell I still need some work on it. Okay, finally, we're going to do some scales. We don't often do scales in these warm-ups because I'm not really sure what scales everybody is ready to do. We did all of the modes in one or two of these different videos, and so that kind of covers everything, right? But we're just going to do major scales today. We're going to do 2 of them only, and you'll see why in a second. And these are top tones scales. So if you look at the top tones book, top tones is a great etude book, and if you look at the beginning, there is a way to do 2-octave scales at the beginning. And you'll see how it works, but it's with a metronome. Well, I do it with a metronome. And you basically do duples, triples, and quadruplets, and then arpeggios, okay? So we're going to choose 2 major keys today. You can do it with minors. You can do it with, you can't really do it with some of the odd interval scales like hexatonic and octatonic because they don't have enough notes in them. And so it's hard to apply the same thing. So that's why we just stick with major scales. It's almost more of an endurance high range exercise than it is knowing your scale, but it really challenges you to know your scale, because if you can't play 16th notes, right, at 120, I don't actually, we're gonna have to go faster than this, because you also have to do it more and more times in one breath. So I'm gonna go 144. Gross, right? Okay. And let's just do B flat for us, A flat concert. Start with 8th notes, do it twice. Then triplets, do it 3 times. Quadruplets, do it 4 times. And then I do the triplets, the arpeggios until I can't, until I really feel like I got it. Here we go. I also forgot to tell you to accent the beginning of each grouping. So at first we're doing accent every other note. Ba, la, la, la. It's just little air checks, little forward sound checks, right? Ba, da, 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 da. Then every 3 notes, right? Basically on the beat every time. You're doing a little accent, a little breath accent, just to make sure everything's working the way it's supposed to. And if you can't do an accent and get the note, like the low notes, right? Well, then there's a problem in your production that you need to address a different way. But so okay, that was B flat. Let's do sharp key. Let's just stick with not too hard ones. I'll try to do E. How about that? E starts to get a little tricky. And well, we need to go a little faster because I'm almost running out of breath on these. So let's try 160. And you can see why it starts to get really, if you don't know your E major scale, you're not going to do very well. So we'll see if I do very well or not. I might crash and burn, in which case I know something about my E major scale. Ready? Oh, it's too fast. Yeah, that was tough, right? I only messed up on the very last one, and it sort of just got, glissy after that. But I got the first three fast E majors, and I started thinking about it too much, and I was trying to stay with the metronome. I can't really hear the metronome very well when I'm playing in this room, so like I said, I think it's running out of batteries. So I was trying to watch it, and I realized I was behind, and then I tried to catch. This is all the stuff that metronome workout is designed to help you work on. So that's the whole thing. I've worked on my breathing, my buzzing, my sound, right? My production, my sound, my tonguing. We've worked on our endurance in a lot of ways. We've worked on our flexibility. We've worked on our sort of immediacy of flexibility, and we've worked on our range a little bit, right? If I did more of these top tone scales, I could keep going up or down or whichever way I want to go, and do more of them. And that you'll at least test your high range with these to see if you can actually play high E every time, or is it like doesn't want to come out. I did okay on that one. There was a couple of octaves that almost didn't come out, but I think I got it. But I did have to do a little more work than I thought I should. So I can work on that the traditional high range method that is in almost every other warm-up. Like I said, which that's the only part of my warm-up I didn't do today because I wanted this test later. So anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the Boulder warm-up or the metronome warm-up, and I hope you try some things out. Almost everything is doable with a metronome to a really great degree. And if you don't use a metronome often, you should at least check in with it weekly, right? And you really should be using it on all of your etudes and excerpts and pieces that you're working on just to make sure that you have a good sense of time. I also recommend taking your metronome, turning it on and throwing it in the back of the car anytime you go anywhere, because then you're working on your passive sense of time. It doesn't mean you can't listen to the radio. It just means that you're going to have the time from the metronome and the time from the tune on the radio going on at the same time. And listening to that and living with that is a great way to just get used to time, right? Different time, and engage with it, right? Excuse me. So that's all I have for you. Like I said, work on your time, work with the metronome, do your warm-up with the metronome every once in a while, and for sure address things every week. But I'm going to leave you with that, and I hope you join me next week. I should be here, and I don't know what we're going to work on yet, but it'll be something. All right? Take care. Talk to you next time.